Good morning or good evening, depending on where you happen to be. My name is Olivia Kim. I'm a research fellow at the Korea Interparliamentary Exchange Center, or KIPEC. We are an organization established by the Korean National Assembly to reinforce legislative exchanges between the National Assembly and the US Congress. Today, we are discussing North Korea's cyber strategy and what it means for South Korea-US security cooperation. When most people think about North Korea, they picture nuclear tests or missile launches. But in recent years, cyber operations have become one of Pyongyang's most powerful tools. Cyber activities allow North Korea to generate foreign currency, steal technology and intelligence, and cause disruptions abroad. To help us better understand these developments, I'm delighted to be joined by Dr. Glenn Chafetz, director of the 2430 Group. Glenn has more than 30 years of experience across government, academia, and the private sector, including service as a former CIA chief of station and the agency's first chief of tradecraft and operational technology. Glenn, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
My pleasure to be here, Olivia.
So to start us off, could you explain why cybersecurity has become so central to North Korea's strategy today and how these operations support the regime's survival and their influence?
Yeah, in short, crime pays. Crime pays. To date, North Korea, as well as other countries, most notably China and Russia, have demonstrated that attacking adversaries via cyber is lucrative, difficult to detect and prevent and deter. It degrades adversaries' capabilities, and as you said in the introduction, provides access to technology and funding that is critical to the North Korean regime.
Yeah, so I mean, for them, it matters, right? So we've seen many North Korean cyber incidents, Sony pictures hacked to WannaCry ransomware to cryptocurrency theft.
Yeah.
Could you share one example that, in your view, best illustrates North Korea's goals and capabilities?
Yeah, that's a hard question because it's always difficult to choose just one. But I would say in February of this year, North Koreans stole 1.4 billion with a B dollars from the crypto exchange Bytebit. When one considers that UN estimates are that North Korea's GDP is somewhere around 15 billion, you can see that that is not a trivial amount of money. Some estimates put the number of thefts or the amount of money taken in 2025 alone at up to 6 billion. And those are the ones that have just been detected and reported, which constitute a minority. But the Bytebit one is very impressive.
So why is it cryptocurrency so important, like as one of their strategy here?
Well, contrary to what people think, cryptocurrency can be tracked, but it requires effort and it requires cooperation from the crypto exchanges. It's a comparatively loosely regulated industry compared to traditional fiat currency, dollar denominated banking, for example. So it's still very much the Wild West of finance and crime. You have the ability to send crypto through a number of steps, through mixers, which makes it very, very difficult, not impossible, but very difficult to track. And that takes time. And the more time that the thieves have, the more likely it is that they will get away with the crime. So that's, in a nutshell, why the North Koreans and other crypto thieves and money launderers prefer crypto over fiat currency.
Mm-hmm. So not just cryptocurrency, like the theft issue. You wrote a very interesting article in the Fletcher Forum.
Yeah,
In their article, you describe how North Korean IT specialists use false or stolen identities to
yeah.
work for foreign companies, with their earnings going back to the North Korean regime. So for those hearing about this for the first time, could you walk us through how this system actually works in practice?
Yeah, this is a great question. The FBI and the National Counterintelligence Authority in the United States have put out a number of public bulletins. A number of companies
Mhm.
have written excellent pieces about this problem. I think we almost certainly underestimate its scale. One security officer at a large American tech company told me the following. He said there are two kinds of companies in the United States and abroad as
Mhm.
well. It's all the advanced economies. Those who know that they have hired North Korean remote IT workers, and
Yeah.
those who hired North Korean remote IT workers and don't know it.
Mm-hmm.
So they, they use a number of techniques, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this is really more of a HR verification problem than it is a traditional cyber problem, which is maybe why it's been so successful. The scammers, they use invented or stolen or
Mm-hmm.
shared identities. They
Mm-hmm.
pay real people to borrow their identities. They supply fake addresses that make sense and then change them for purposes of receiving equipment, for example, a
Mm-hmm.
laptop or a phone. They use these fake employment personas for the purposes of getting jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they lack a social media or real person profile across
Mm-hmm.
the web. They list fake references and
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of remember this is steps removed, so it wouldn't be
Right.
me hiring you, it would be me hiring you, and then
Mm-hmm.
you hire contractors to supply the IT support to me. So there's steps removed, and the scammers count on people not checking references, or they'll use fake
Mm-hmm.
references, shared
Mm-hmm.
addresses. They'll refuse to appear on camera or in person for interviews. They'll say, "Oh, I'm having problems with my computer. Can we do a voice call?" They find reasons not to be interviewed in person. They increasingly use AI generated tools. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so that's they use filters and backgrounds to disguise their appearance. Um, and the last thing they do is they do good work, and that's important. They do solid IT support, and so they give their employers no
Mm-hmm.
reason to investigate them or terminate their employment. So that's just a short list.
Mm-hmm.
There's wonderful companies out there like Nisos who are
Right.
doing very detailed work on how this works, and I encourage companies to reach
Mm-hmm.
out to those folks to get the briefing and the assistance that they need.
That was an excellent explanation of how North Korean, workers, ended up working for foreign companies. So, honestly, for me, just this news and what you just shared with us seems very like new and strange, right? But then why is it such a big problem for like Americans or other foreign countries or South Korea?
Well, oh, that's a very big question and difficult to answer. I think the first thing to note is if you're not looking for it, you're not going to find it.
Mm-hmm.
Most of what I call and others call the North Korean IT army uh,
Mm-hmm.
is not stealing. It's not doing ransomware. It's not doing intrusions. Most of it is simply to earn the salaries to
Mhm.
earn the money, to earn the contract,
Mhm.
so that those workers, and there's tens of thousands,
Mhm.
possibly more, but at least tens of thousands in the United States alone,
Mhm.
they take that money and they send it back to the Kim regime.
Mhm.
So if you're an American company and you hire an outsourced IT provider, um, you have no incentive to check
Mhm.
right now to ensure that that IT provider is
Mhm.
hiring the people that it says it's hiring. The second issue is right now the American government treats American companies that use North Korean IT workers as
Mhm.
victims.
Mhm.
And in a way, they are. They have been victimized by a fraud, but it is incumbent upon those American companies or South Korean companies or Finnish
Mhm.
companies, it's happening all over the world. It is
Mhm.
incumbent upon those companies to do their due diligence.
Mhm.
In export control, for example,
Mhm.
if you export equipment or funding to the North Korean regime, you are fined,
Mhm.
sometimes criminally charged for supporting Kim's regime, Kim's lifestyle, Kim's
Mhm.
nuclear and missile program. But if you hire North Korean remote IT workers and
Yeah.
pay them salary, which goes to the Kim regime,
Mhm.
you face no penalties for
Mhm.
doing that. You're treated as a victim, and I think while I don't wish to criminalize
Mhm.
behavior that shouldn't be criminalized, private sector companies have a responsibility to ensure that they are not sending money
Mhm.
and support to the Kim regime.
Mhm.
So I think we need to change the incentives.
Mhm. I think that it's really interesting that in cybersecurity realm, it's not just the government, but also private companies also have some responsibilities to play here. I think I want to touch on that like after a few questions. So you mentioned that using the cryptocurrency theft, North Korea makes about $1.4 billion, right? So,
Well, that's one theft
oh
against
my
White.
goodness. Wow.
No,
Yes.
I think the figure that I'm most familiar
Mhm.
with for 2025 is 6 billion that's been
Wow.
detected and reported. So it's much
So,
more so
so
far.
that's the cryptocurrency theft alone, you're saying.
That is all theft. That is all theft.
All
Yeah.
theft. Okay.
Crypto, I think,
So
makes up the
are there,
bulk of that. Yes.
sure. So, like North Korea is do many different cyber security operations other than just stealing cryptocurrency. So are there specific industries or countries that the Kim regime tends to focus on?
Um, they've been pretty broad.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they've they've attacked Taiwan. They've attacked the United States, Japan, South Korea,
Mm-hmm.
Pakistan, Bangladesh. Those are some of the countries that have been Philippines,
Wow.
Cambodia. Those are some of the countries that have been
Mm-hmm.
reported as having uh, industries.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes in one famous
Yeah.
case, the central bank of Bangladesh, I believe, was attacked. So it's a pretty broad swath of
Wow.
targets that North Korea attacks.
Wow. So you just mentioned like Bangladesh, right?
Yes,
I mean, that country is one of developing countries, but why is North Korea going after like some developing countries like that?
that's probably because there's less control. Probably
Mhm,
because they may see it as an easier target.
mhm,
It's difficult to say. North Korea is pretty broad, as I just
mhm.
said. So
Yeah.
they will go where they believe that the risk is low and the chance of
Mhm.
success is high.
Right. So what's really interesting is that they're targeting many different countries, right? That means North Korea has to have some kind of capacities for their workers to know what's really happening in other countries, right? And like even know the language,
Sure.
I'm assuming. So I guess there
Sure.
are a lot of intermediaries, right?
Yes, there's a number. They use intermediaries and they also use false identities. It is not
Mhm.
difficult to acquire passports from other countries in the world. Some countries even sell them.
Oh.
They get legitimate citizenship
Mhm.
in a variety of different countries in Latin America, in the Pacific Island nations,
Mhm.
in Southeast Asia. Generally speaking, the
Mhm.
poorer the country, the easier it is to acquire
I see.
a legitimate purchased
Mhm.
residency or citizenship.
So I guess I'm kind of circling back to what you just mentioned. So why is it so difficult for these governments and private companies to detect and disrupt North Korean operations?
Yeah, that's a big question. For one, cyber and fraud and espionage
Mhm.
operations that we're talking about are targeted mainly at the private sector of
Mm,
these countries.
sure.
Not This is not state on state espionage that
Mhm.
people are most familiar with. And just take the United States, for example. Our national security establishment developed and grew out of really two conflicts. One
Mhm.
was the Cold War with the Soviet Union, and the second one was the war on terror after 9/11, 2001. It was not set up to fight attacks on the US private sector. That was not the main threat from either the Soviet Union or Al Qaeda or other terrorist actors. So the US government is not well positioned to detect, report on, or
Mhm.
combat this threat. I mean, if you think about, for example, the primary institution that the United States government would use, it would be the FBI, which is an exceptional,
Yeah.
capable organization, but it has 10,000 or so special agents spread out over the entire country for 340 million people
Mhm.
and millions of businesses. In addition, it has a number of tasks, not
Mhm.
just fighting attacks on the US private sector from North Korea and other actors. The private sector targets don't generally have well-developed defense mechanisms against these kind
Mhm.
of attacks.
Mhm.
Private sector companies are set up to do their private sector business. If they
Mhm.
manufacture automobiles, their expertise is manufacturing automobiles. It is
Mhm.
not counter sabotage, counter espionage,
Yeah.
counterintelligence,
Mhm.
but it needs to be. Modern
Right.
business requires modern
Mhm.
counterintelligence and counter espionage tools. Now, some Western, broadly defined, advanced economic private sectors uh, have sophisticated counter fraud and
Mhm.
counter espionage tools. Particularly large financial institutions
Mhm.
are better than others. Traditional large financial
Mhm.
institutions. I'm thinking of the large banks. For example, like
Mhm.
Citibank. Another reason that North Korea succeeds is that its effort is diffused across thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of
Mhm.
targets. The
Mhm.
efforts are slow, they're incremental.
Mhm.
They're if you prefer under the radar. These are
Yeah.
not large, splashy,
Mhm.
concentrated attacks. People pay attention to activities that are visible,
Mhm.
immediate, dramatic, sudden. These activities are constant, incremental,
Mhm.
slow, and difficult to see. So so they're not seen. Um, And then finally, the point that I made in the previous question still holds. The incentives are not
Mhm.
aligned. When we talk about American or South Korean or Japanese, Australian companies, European companies, they are not incentivized to look for, detect, report, deter, and prevent these kind of activities.
So it sounds like North Korea is like doing, like, I don't want to say it, but doing a good job, right? And
It
other
is.
countries like Russia, China, or others are doing like similar operations, I believe. So how good is North Korea when compared to other China, like Russia or others?
Well, I would say on the espionage theft uh, category, it's exceptional.
Mhm.
It's as good as any. I would say from what I've heard, because I'm not a hands-on keyboard cyber expert, and I don't want to convey that impression. The cyber experts I talk to say that North Korea is quite good. It
Mhm.
might not be in the category of China, which is exceptional, or Russia, which is exceptional, but it's very close.
I see.
So
Mhm.
this idea that North Korea is technologically backwards is incorrect. One of the reasons they succeed in the IT support effort is because the
Mhm.
IT support that they provide is good.
Mhm. So that's really interesting because when, as you just said, when people look at North Korea, they don't really see the country as like really good, hacking countries or not really good in cybersecurity because of their backwater.
It is a really good hacking country.
Yeah. So, like since you mentioned that a lot of these thefts or operations are happening in private level. So, do you think governments can play any kind of role here? You said on the Citibank, for instance, is doing their own thing to counter
Yeah.
operations.
Yeah. Governments need to do more.
Hmm.
They need to apply more resources to this problem. As you and I discussed on this panel that we both attended,
Hmm.
governments, again, are not set up for
Hmm.
this problem, and they need to be. This is the conflict that we're in right now. And
Hmm.
so governments, I think, spend a lot more time on traditional warfare and planning
Hmm.
for the possibility of traditional warfare and not paying enough attention to this gray zone, hybrid,
Hmm.
quasi warfare. But it's attacking our private sector. It's attacking our countries
Hmm.
nonetheless. So I think for one thing, countries need to devote more resources to this problem. This is the war that we are in right now, not a
Hmm.
future war or a possible war. It is the war right now. I think the second thing is they need to share information among
Hmm.
each other and with the private sector. And I think the third thing, as I discussed earlier in our conversation, they need to create incentives for their private sectors
Hmm.
to spend money to defend themselves,
Hmm.
to detect, report
Yeah.
these efforts.
Yeah. So now I kind of want to talk about the alliance a little bit. So how do Washington and Seoul currently work together on cybersecurity issues? And where do you see the most important opportunities to strengthen that cooperation going forward?
I think what they're doing right now, I'm not sure of the specifics. I would say it's not enough. And obviously, I think I can justify that answer by pointing to the results,
Hmm.
which is, as I've said in previous conversations, North Korea and China and Russia are attacking South Korea and the United States. They regard themselves to be in a conflict, and they are winning.
Hmm.
And I don't think any of those governments, whether it's Japan, South Korea, the United States, are devoting enough resources. They're not sharing enough information with each other based on the result. and they're not working to align incentives. And so I think that scammers and attackers and hackers, foreign intelligence services, because this isn't ultimately the activity directed by foreign intelligence services, whether they're using proxies or not, they take advantage of a lack of cooperation among different jurisdictions, and they hop from one jurisdiction to another, and they go to the places where protections are weakest
Mhm.
and where the risk is lowest and where the gain is highest. And the way to defeat that is to share information and standardize
Mhm.
policies.
It's really interesting because it just doesn't involve just security institutions and different levels of stakeholders. It's bigger than what we think it is. So lastly, if you were speaking directly to lawmakers in South Korea,
Yeah.
what's the most important perspective they should keep in mind when shaping South Korea's cybersecurity and alliance strategy?
I think pay attention to the private sector. This is not a government problem. Our adversaries are fighting asymmetrically.
Mhm.
They're not attacking across the DMZ, at least not commonly. They're
Mhm.
not launching artillery attacks. They're not launching air attacks. They're not launching missile attacks. They are launching cyber attacks and fraud and scams and theft against our private sector and against our critical infrastructure.
Mhm.
Anything that depends on uh, uh, computers, anything that depends on people who are not trained in counterespionage and counterintelligence. So instead of going after the Army of the Republic of Korea, they go after the corporations based
Mhm.
in the Republic of Korea, or they go after multinational
Mhm.
corporations that have a presence in the Republic of Korea or the United States or Japan. This is a private sector problem as well as a government problem. And if the governments do not incentivize the private sector and help train and equip the
Mhm.
private sector to recognize and detect and report these attacks, then our governments, South Korea, the United States, and onward, will continue to suffer these attacks and to fund the Kim regime and the Kim missile program and the Kim nuclear program and
Mhm.
the Kim intelligence services that are perpetrating these attacks. It's a vicious circle, really, this failure to incentivize detection and reporting, because the less that the private sector detects and reports, the smaller the private sector thinks this problem is, mistakenly.
Mhm.
And the smaller they think it is, the less risk they assess. The less risk they assess, the less effort they devote to
Mhm.
mitigating this risk. And it's a vicious circle. So we have to do everything we can within our power as governments and the private sector to increase monitoring,
Mhm.
education,
Mhm.
detection, and reporting, and to incentivize this. Because right now, even when companies detect it, they're reluctant to report it because they don't want to look bad to investors and to customers and to the public at large.
That's really interesting point. And when you mentioned there's a vicious cycle, I think that it's really important everyone, just not lawmakers, to have some awareness of what's happening in the world, really. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Glenn, thank you for sharing your insights today. This conversation really underscored how cyber issues have become a central part of broader security issues. We hope today's conversation offered a better understanding of North Korea's cyber strategy and emphasized the importance of close coordination between the US and South Korea. Glenn, it's truly been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for your time.
It's been my pleasure. You're most welcome. And thank you for dedicating time to this issue.
Thank you.